What's up guys, Tim Ruswick here, and today I wanted to talk about something that I've experienced a couple times in my life and I've seen a lot of developers struggle with. So I wanted to kind of go over it and kind of my thoughts on it and how I've moved away from it over the years. And what I wanted to talk about was the concept of people getting attached to ideas. I know for me, when I started, there was one specific idea that I had that I just fell in love with. When I first played Halo, and it kind of inspired me to make my own game and get into game development and all that, I had this idea for this cross of like Riddick and Halo, like a space FPS shooter mixed with like this darker world of Chronicles of Riddick. And both of those things really inspired me a lot in my life, in my creativity. So I got attached to this idea in this game called Project Exodus that I wanted to make so bad. And it was the biggest AAA concept game you could imagine. It was massive. It was huge. The idea was honestly for a major studio to build. It wasn't something that I could build. But I was attached to it, and I wanted to build it so bad, and I just stuck onto it for so long, for years and years and years and years. I rebuilt that same idea. I searched around for different engines, any way that I could make an FPS. I did it. That's why I talk about eventually kind of using FPS Creator and stuff too, because that's what I wanted to make. I wanted to make that FPS game. And what I realized was, after going through that and that series a couple times in my life with the same kind of passion, is that like when you get attached to an idea, it can be dangerous for a couple reasons. One, sometimes the scope is so massive that no matter what you do, you really can't get there. And when you're attached to the idea and the scope, it's really hard to break it down into something that you can actually build. Like for me, that I was just attached to the concept of like a AAA FPS, and there is no way that I could have built that by myself. You know, putting the amount of effort that I was putting into it, like, it was just a ridiculously scoped project, and it was something that I was never going to make. So, and number two, I think getting attached to an idea has disadvantages to the game. So in that case specifically, but in lots of other cases since, one of the things I've discovered is that when I'm really attached to an idea, I'm less open to changing it and modifying the concept and figuring out new ways to do things and just iterating a little more openly. And that kind of led to, you know, me showing people my game, or me trying to get feedback from other people, and then getting defensive when they didn't like the thing that I fell in love with. And as an artist, it's something you kind of got to balance, because on one side, you absolutely should create the thing that you want to create, and you should, no matter what people tell you, try and put something together that maybe other people don't really see the value in. But on the flip side, if you're trying to make a good game, if you're trying to really make something that resonates with people and people love to play and people love to buy, you have to be open to criticism. But it's a balancing act, right? And it's more of an art than a science. There's no right person to listen to. There's no right piece of feedback to listen to. But you got to kind of learn how to balance those two things and figure out which is the appropriate criticism to take and which is the appropriate criticism to discard. And it's one of those things that you only really learn with experience. But from my experience, getting attached to an idea has been detrimental to that process. It has really damaged a lot of things that I think could have been great had I just kind of let go of my reins of what I thought the game should be, or this concept that I loved, or this story element, or this idea. Because sometimes, especially in games, your brain has a way of thinking up these things that just seem so logical. They seem like totally that would actually work. And then when you actually sit down and you build it, one, it may be more complicated than you thought it was, or two, when it's built, it's not as fun as you thought it was, or three, it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to. Like, I remember when I first started programming and stuff, there are so many things that my brain would like create, and it would like break the laws of of how things worked. It would, like, if I had an idea for a web page, for example, it didn't take into account all the different resolutions of different devices and all that stuff. If I had this idea for a mechanic, it was, I seemed to do it perfect in my head, but in actuality, in application, in when I actually built the thing, it wasn't nearly the same. So you gotta be careful about how attached you are to different ideas and different concepts, because I think, even though I think there is merit to creating something straight out of your soul and putting it out into the world and getting this piece of artwork out there, I think there's also merit to the idea that something truly great is usually made by a multitude of people, and is usually made by putting aside ego, getting people together and kind of working together to all make the best product, no matter what. Like, make the best game that you can. And when you're attached to something, when you have, like, when you just, like, get it in your head that this is how it has to be no matter what, you close your mind off to other possibilities or other things that really could have made the game great, but they would have taken it in a different direction that you didn't really see as useful or beneficial. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, because the more attached to an idea you are, the more closed off you are in other areas. And it's, when it comes to game design especially, like, there's so many things, all the way from the mechanics to the story to whatever, that can just be beautifully changed if you just shift from your original concept. For, like, personally, seriously, out of all of the games that I have worked on or created, very few of them, I would say less than 5 to 10% of them, have ended up with the same idea or concept that I started with. And I find this happens a ton in my single mechanic mobile games, because a lot of times I'll have an idea for a prototype or a mechanic or whatever. I'll mess around with that. I'll build that thing. I'll try it out at touch screens, different sizes, different over time periods. And it either works or it doesn't. And then if it works, then I try and fit it in with a theme. I'm trying to, like, okay, would this work better with, like, shapes and basic colors? Would this work better with a spaceship and asteroids? Would this work better? You know what I mean? Like, try and fit that into the mechanic that I have. Other times it starts the opposite. Sometimes I start with a theme. I want to tell this story and I got to put a mechanic into it. But if I'm so caught up on what I want to do that I won't change it no matter what, it has really killed a lot of my projects. And going back through my whole game folders with, you know, so many graveyard games that just never saw the light of day, like, this has been a huge problem for me. Like, getting attached to concepts is dangerous. So I hope that helped you out. If you have any comments on this, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Otherwise, once again, I'm Tim Ruswick. I'll see you guys in the next video.